Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is a place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. And today we're going to talk about the fact that Colin Kaepernick has pissed off the entire comics creator community. And how would Colin Kaepernick do that? Well, we need to start with who is Colin Kaepernick? Colin Kaepernick is a former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers whose career was cut short after he protested the national anthem to raise awareness around police brutality and racial injustice. Kaepernick is also the founder and CEO of Lumi AI, a recent AI startup that raised over $4 million in capital. It's a platform where creators can publish, create, distribute, market their own stories that they 100% own. And if you notice at the end of Lumi, there's AI. So, of course, there's an AI twist to this. And what that means is that potentially, obviously with a lot of startups these days, it's hard to navigate what's actually real and what these companies do. But this company is positioned itself as somewhere where, hey, if you can't write and you're an artist, they can do that for you. If you can't draw and you're a writer, they can do that for you. If you can't do both, it could do that for you and you own 100% of your stories and you're able to distribute them. That all sounds good and maybe a board meeting. But when you release that to the comics community, who is at this point has already said that they want no part of AI when it comes to the creators, fans as well, as we've seen just allegations force DC to pull some covers from some pretty big artists like Francisco Matina. No one really wants anything to do with AI when it comes to comics. And it's a really small community, so it's easy for these things to really take hold. And right now, people are scared, and especially when it comes to the creator community. Not just in comics, we've seen in film and TV with the pullbacks, the layoffs. People don't feel great. Right now, no one feels great. Every industry is hurting. So when people see that a company is able to raise $4 million potentially on the backs of other people's work, people get sensitive. And you can tell just based on sort of the launch of Kaepernick's new company, the fact that he launched a comic book company and not one comic creator is attached to it. Usually, with this kind of thing, you would want someone with some type of expertise. And some creators have come out and said that they've had conversations with Colin over the past few months and have told him what this means. Obviously, he was at San Diego Comic Con promoting the company and probably was in meetings and stuff like that. So the fact that, he was never able to get out of that and have someone by his side to sort of promote this kind of tells you, like, hey, this is probably not it. And when it comes to platforms for creators, there's so many platforms that have already democratized creating and publishing and distributing your own comics. You have Webtoon, you have Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Zoop is great. Zoop is relatively new, and the great thing about Zoop, it helps you with all the things that Lumi's positioning itself as, with marketing, distributing. So it's like Kickstarter where you don't have to fulfill those things. And I think what's really kind of hit a nerve, particularly as I think a lot of these creators supported Colin's cause. I myself met Colin in person a couple years ago in New York in an overpass in Tribeca. He was really nice, had that $1 million smile. So I think a lot of the creators are really upset just because it feels like someone they had looked up to is really turning their back on them and is hurting them in a way where they're like, dude, what the fuck? And now, is there a potential for Colin to sort of pivot and change what it is? Yes. Do I think they will? Not necessarily, because he's already taken VC money to make an AI startup. So to be like, hey, actually, we're just gonna create like Kickstarter again or something like that, that's not gonna happen. You'd hope so. You really do. And I think when it comes to athletes, it's natural to sort of make that pivot into media. I think athletes are naturally entertainers, and you see this a lot when people transition outside of their career, that they go into media, whether it be commentary. I think Colin is probably past that, especially with his experience protesting, just the way he was the topic of almost every day on sports debate shows. I doubt he wants to get into that. Obviously, over the past couple years, he's part of what he's said has made him create this company is his struggles to get things off the ground in media. He's had previous media companies and publishings, and this is not the first time he's kind of hopped on a wave. A couple years ago, he was involved in sort of that SPAC wave that we saw a lot of celebrities get into. So you hope that he's listening, especially to the feedback. And, with creators, you need a community, especially when in comics. And with Lumi, if you go to their website, really the focus is comics and graphic novels. So if you don't have that community, whether it be readers or creators themselves, it's hard to really have a company that you could really work off of. And what's the business model? If you're giving creators 100% of the rights, you're generating this art on Lord knows what data sets and what's been scraped, really, what's the business? So it is interesting to see sort of like how these companies are able to raise money on these business models that are non-existent, probably will never exist, and is disheartening because, as some people have pointed out, that money could have been used to actually highlight creators of color or actually put money in the hands of creators to help them publish, market, and distribute these stories. Because as we've seen, these fads kind of come and go. We've seen it with NFT collectibles, blockchain, and certain technologies do make their way in to comics. And the way AI is going to impact comics, we'll see. I think it's one of the ones that are most vulnerable just because we've seen how AI art has sort of dominated social media networks, especially when it comes to creators. You see so many fake like Wolverines or Henry Cavill as like Cyclops and stuff like that. And it sucks for creators. It's not the best place. Comics is not something that you can get off of, especially these days. You hope people can make a living and people do it for their passion. You really do wish there was more actually invested in comics in the industry to grow it, to grow the distribution networks. But sadly, all the money is in things like this or digital collectibles because there is potential for comics to be bigger than it is. And there are so many great creators that these data sets are probably being built off of, and that's why creators, particularly artists, are really ticked off at a situation like this. And going back to my point previously, you hope Colin gets in a position where he's listening. Obviously, he's had these conversations, but it is frustrating to see the interviews and sort of how a lot of this seems to be going over their head when it comes to the impact of what something like this means on the creator community. It's not something additive. And I do think it actually opens more for people to kind of be like, okay, like look into Zoop or Kickstarter. And I know I'm talking about it. To be honest, I think this company will probably fall flat because if you go to their website, it's just a press release about it being this groundbreaking platform. Well, if it's groundbreaking, why is no one on it? Why are there no significant creators that you could get on it, especially with a name like Colin Kaepernick? So I think this will pass, but it does highlight the fact that creators are in a space where it just feels like they're constantly being beat down by the economy because they see sort of like the money that's being thrown around and they're like, hey, like, I'm telling great stories. Why can't we invest in these things? I don't know. It's tough. Like I said, I met Colin a couple years ago. He was really nice. Seems like a nice dude, but this ain't it. Now, what do you think? Where do you think AI in comics is going? Do you think it has a place? Obviously, creators have had their say. The community, for the most part, has had their say. Is it here to stay in terms of art, or do we see it sort of be used as a tool? Well, let me know. I know it's a sensitive topic, and peace.